Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs are doing something that I'm not sure can ever be done again. And I'm talking about their complete dominance over their traditional rivals right now. I'm not even talking about Tennessee and South Carolina. I'm talking about Georgia's complete dominance right now over Florida, Auburn, and Georgia Tech. They're crushing all three of those teams. I know the point of playing the game is to win the championship, right? Winning the national championship is goal number one. But you have to beat Florida. You have to beat Georgia Tech. You have to beat Auburn. If you don't, you can't coach at Georgia. And it's something that Kirby Smart is doing as well as anyone out there, right? As far as beating the teams that matter most. I'm going to talk about what Georgia is doing to each one of them. I'm going to talk about which of those three could be the next to beat Georgia. When could that happen? Is there a major problem if Georgia loses to Florida or Auburn or Georgia Tech anytime soon? We're going to dig into all of that. But first, what they're doing to these teams is still ongoing. Now, let's talk about Florida first, right? Georgia's won 6 out of the last 7 against the Gators. Kirby Smart is 6-2 against Georgia's biggest rival. And I do think that Florida is Georgia's biggest rival. A lot of the older generational Georgia fans will probably say Georgia Tech, then Florida, then Auburn. I think Florida is the number one rival. That's the biggest game of the season. That's it. In my opinion, it is. I don't know many people who think Auburn is number one, but they're the longest tenured rivalry, right? Deepest, oldest rivalry in the South. I'm going to talk about that in a minute because Georgia they're crushing. They're ruining that rivalry. Kirby Smart is ruining the Georgia-Auburn classic game that a lot of people used to love across the country because everyone knows what's going to happen. But I'm going to talk about the Florida series first. Again, Georgia's won 6 out of 7, and the last 3 aren't even close. I can't see a world where Billy Napier beats Georgia anytime soon. The talent isn't there. The depth isn't there. They're not, the staff isn't the same staff that's in Athens. They're not building a winning culture, a winning identity. They're just trying to put together a competitive team. They do have the quarterback of the future on the roster right now, freshman DJ Lagway. But listen, in 2021, Georgia won by 27 points. In 2022, Georgia beat Florida by 22. Last year, they beat them by 23. They're not really competitive. I mean, they're just not. Georgia's clearly the better team. You see it in the first and second quarter. I'm sitting there up in the press box writing my notes at halftime, trying to grab some snacks, trying to get my work done, right? Because I know the ending by the time halftime runs around. And you all do too. Everyone watching this video, Florida, Georgia fan, you know that it's party time when halftime comes around. Because Georgia has already asserted themselves as, all right, not this year, Florida. Maybe next year, but probably not either. Georgia won by 19 in 2018 and 35 in 2017. 2019 was close, and of course, Georgia lost in 2020 and their first year, 2016. Georgia leads the all-time series, in case you forgot, 56 to 44 to 2. Georgia has, they have the upper hand in this rivalry. I don't think they will ever lose the all-time series record to Florida. They're a better program all time, and they are clearly the better team, the better program. I don't know when Florida's going to be Georgia again. They're going to have a really good quarterback. They're going to have to be a lot better in the trenches, and that doesn't take 1 or 2 years to develop. That takes several years. Maybe it's a little easier now with the transfer portal, but still, you want to have some continuity along the offensive line. That's not exactly a position where you want to have in and out guys through the portal, coming in, coming out every single year. You want to have those guys playing together and being familiar with each other for several years if they want to play their best. And I don't think Florida's anywhere close to that level yet. And again, talent, top to bottom, Florida doesn't have it, and they won't have it against Georgia anytime soon. Same with Auburn. This used to be a rivalry that was Georgia-Auburn, 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 right? And the all-time series lead, Georgia would have one, then it's tied, then Auburn would take it, then it's tied again. It was such a 50-50 rivalry that was so close. Now, Georgia's taking the rivalry and run with it. Kirby Smart said, see you later. We're going to take off with this. Georgia is 16-3 against Auburn since 2006. 16-3. If you would have told Georgia fans in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2004 that starting in 2006, even in 2005 when Auburn ripped Georgia's heart out in Athens, Georgia should have won that game, but Auburn won it. It's one of the few times they beat Georgia, this century. But Georgia fans would have said you're crazy. Going 16-3 against Auburn from 2006 to 2023, there's no way, right? But that's what Kirby Smart has done. Georgia's 10-1 against Auburn since 2014. They've won the last 7 games, and a lot of them haven't been close either. Since the 2017 SEC Championship game, Georgia has won 7 in a row. 4 of those wins were by 21 points or more. Again, a lot of times, this game is already over at the half. Right? Occasionally, Auburn will give Georgia a little bit of a fight like they did last year. That was a cute fight they put up. They had Georgia on the ropes, and then Georgia, going into the fourth quarter, they all looked at each other. Kirby, Carson Beck, Brock Bowers, Malachi Starks, They looked at each other and they said, "We're better than this team. Let's go out and let's rip their heart out. Let's go punch them in the face in their home, and let's take this win." And that's exactly what happened. So, yeah, Auburn will put up a fight, but more often than not, Georgia's gonna play Auburn no matter where, if it's in Auburn or Athens, and they're gonna take care of business easily. There's not a whole lot of stress that goes in to the Georgia-Auburn game if you're a Georgia fan. Now, yes, last year you did, and the SEC Championship you did for a little bit, but Georgia was clearly the better team, and they have been for several years now. They've beaten Auburn every single year since, 2013? They lost to Auburn in 2017, but they beat them 2 weeks later. So they've beaten Auburn, it feels like every year for the past decade, basically. So I don't know when the next time Auburn's going to beat Georgia. They're probably the team that'll do it first between Auburn, Florida, and Georgia Tech. Hugh Freeze is going to bring in talent. That's what he does, illegally or legally. Wherever Hugh Freeze is, he's going to bring in some good talent. I think he's a good head coach, kind of a slime ball, kind of a sketchy dude, right? Whatever. The guy's going to bring in talent. I don't know if he can build that program to where they want it to be, because it is a tough job. But they played Georgia hard. They played Alabama really hard last year in his first year. I think they will take a step forward. I just don't know how big that step's going to be. And they've got a challenging schedule, and they are not super talented top to bottom. They're still building depth. They've got some guys who can play, but they do need to replace a lot of guys on defense. And they need better quarterback play. Maybe they'll get it from Walker White after the kid I'm blanking on from Michigan State, who had one good run against Georgia last year. I'll think of it by the time the video ends. Maybe I won't. Maybe he's irrelevant. Maybe he doesn't matter because that guy's never beating Georgia. Peyton Thorne. If Peyton Thorne's their guy, they're looking at 4 or 5 losses, right? And maybe he is. Maybe he takes a step forward. Maybe he's too old to take a step forward. That guy's been around a while. I think he is what he is. Anyway, Auburn's irrelevant right now. Maybe they can take a step forward and start challenging Georgia a little bit more. But again, Georgia's taken that series and they've run with it, and they're not looking back. And I don't know when Auburn's going to beat Georgia anytime soon. If they don't win in Athens this year, it's going to be over 20 years since they've won a game in Athens. Last time they did it was 2005, and again, Georgia should have won that game. Auburn, again, we don't have to talk about that game, but Georgia's punching Auburn in the face, and they're not stopping. Against Georgia Tech, it's definitely, once it felt like it was clean old-fashioned hate. Now it's just big brother, little brother. Georgia's giving them a nudge, saying, hey, you're growing up a little bit. Brent Key is the right guy. I think he's good for that program. I think he will make them better. But there's no reason whatsoever why Georgia Tech should beat Georgia anytime soon. Yes, last year was, they made Georgia earn it. They made Georgia work for it, and they played hard. It wasn't enough. The game was never in doubt. No one thought Georgia Tech was going to win that game, but they lost by less than 10. So that's a thumbs up if you're Georgia Tech. After that game, I think every Georgia Tech fan was happy that they only lost to Georgia by 9, right? That is a step in the right direction. Georgia's won the last 6 games, and 5 of them, Georgia's won the game by 21 points or more. Georgia's only lost to Georgia Tech 3 times since 2001. Georgia leads the all-time series 71 to 41 to 5. There's no reason Kirby Smart should lose to Georgia Tech ever unless there's no excuse. From a talent perspective, from a coaching perspective, development, resources, facilities, the strength and conditioning, and everything that Georgia does in their football department is better than what Georgia Tech has done. And I'm not trying to hate on Georgia Tech. I'm just saying it's different. It's completely different. In Georgia Tech, again, they're moving in the right direction, I think. They're doing a better job, and they're not a complete laughingstock anymore. And again, they gave Georgia a respectable fight. and again, made them earn it. And they do get credit for that, moving in the right direction. But they shouldn't beat Georgia anytime soon. And I don't know if Kirby Smart is ever going to lose to Georgia Tech again. It might sound crazy, but I don't think it is. We'll see. What do you think? Who's going to be Georgia next? Auburn, Florida, Georgia Tech? I'm going to say Auburn, but I don't think it's next year, and I don't know when it's going to be. You let me know in the comment section below. You can talk about this over on Dawg Post as well. Appreciate y'all watching these videos. Hope to see you on the website.